That's good. I think the thumbs go away automatically after a while. Yeah. Okay. So this way, if you have, are there, oh, you know what? They only have positive reactions there. So you can't like, there's no tomatoes, bad tomatoes you can throw. There's no sad faces. So you only have positive options. Sorry. Okay. I guess we're ready to get started. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our next class. Today we're going to talk about Shabbat and the Sabbath and how important that is. So I'm going to go ahead and start the share screen here and pull up the handout there. Can you see the handout? Everybody can see the handout? Yeah, so I'm going to talk about first the importance of Shabbat and then some of the customs and rituals, particularly about Friday night, and then about the question of what is work. We're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. And then sort of a practical, given the real world that you all live in, how do we negotiate not working on Shabbat and still have a life and you know, if we need to work a living, you know, if the job requires, what do we do? So let's start at the very beginning. So this is a quotation over here, Achad Ha'am, this where the hand pointer is was a Zionist, cultural Zionist thinker in the late 19th century. So we'll talk about Zionism and the rise of Israel and the formation of Israel on another day in March or something, April. The creation of the state of Israel, the sort of movement to really create the state of Israel that was successful, started in the late 1800s. And just like in America, there were founding fathers of the American, you know, Revolution and the Constitution and so on. There were a group of kind of scholars and thinkers in the Jewish world in the late 1800s who were figuring out the details of how to go about creating a state or recreating a state in our homeland. And one of them was a guy who nicknamed himself, his nickname was Achad Ha'am, which means one the people. And he was not religious per se. He was, I'm just admitting some people into the room here. So he was not religious. He was a cultural Jew. And he believed that Zionism was important for the future of the Jewish people as a culture, as a society, because scattered around the world, it was hard to maintain a unified culture and way of life. But if we were all in one place, like the Italians, the Germans, the French, the Americans, then we could the Jewish culture would flourish. So I mentioned that to explain his quotation here. Even though he was a cultural Jew, not necessarily a religious Jew, he believed that we ought to observe the Sabbath. And this is what he said about the Sabbath. A Jew who feels a real tie with the life of our people throughout the generations. Notice he calls it the life of our people. That's kind of a cultural statement, not a religious statement. If you believe in Jewish life throughout the generations, will find it utterly impossible to think of the existence of the Jewish people without the Sabbath. One can say without exaggeration that more than the Jew has kept the Sabbath has kept the Jew. That expression, keeping the Sabbath, comes from the Bible, lishmor et Shabbat, to observe or to keep the Sabbath. And that became kind of the way to express the idea of observing the Sabbath in all its rituals and requirements. You keep the Sabbath by following its rituals. So he's saying, yeah, Jews have observed the Sabbath, but even more important than Jews observing the Sabbath is observing the Sabbath has kept the Jewish people alive. It's that weekly marker that kept the Jewish people together as a people. So that's what he said. So here's a short a paragraph from a sermon I gave about the importance of the Sabbath. It's the only holiday that's mentioned in the Ten Commandments, right? The other Jewish holidays are not mentioned. The way Jews count the Ten Commandments, it's commandment number 4, to keep the Sabbath day. And it is one of the Ten Commandments. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the holidays that all Jews want to be in services, not mentioned in the Ten Commandments. It's also important because it's a weekly reminder to us and our families that we're Jewish, right? You know, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur only happen once or twice a year. If we're not doing Jewish things the rest of the year, we're really not, we don't have a full, rich, not living a full, rich Jewish lives with the rest of the community. But if we get together every week, right, that's what keeps us together on a more regular basis. Kind of like, imagine if you were exercising only once a year, you know, tried to run a marathon without working out every week, right? So the idea is the regular observance of the Sabbath is what keeps us in shape as Jews. It creates a sacred time on a regular basis to celebrate with our family and friends. Again, if you didn't do this regularly, you know, you wouldn't, it's hard to maintain those connections. Doing it regularly helps to keep those connections. It designates a time that we can reflect on the values that we hold dear, right? By pushing away the items, the things that we do during the rest of the week, we're able to focus on the important things in life, to spend at least a little time, you know, reading a Jewish text, celebrating the Jewish holidays, spending a little more time in the synagogue. It helps us to focus more on what's important in life. Designates a time we can reflect on values we hold dear, on the events that have occurred during the past week. It's like a way to kind of, instead of having to wait to the end of the year to see what did we accomplish during the year, every week we can look back and say, well, did I do the things I wanted to do? What are the things I still need to do in the coming week that I want to do? Not with work, right? But with the rest of your life. What do you want to accomplish in your life? Are you meeting your life's goals? And every week, if you check in, you're more likely to be able to follow those and to achieve them. It provides a needed rest to recharge our batteries and revive our souls. One of the common things that people do on Shabbat, and I do on Shabbat, it's called the Shabbat Nap. We actually, you actually take a nap in the afternoon. Unheard of today, but get a couple hours of sleep on a Saturday afternoon. It really does help to refresh you. And for some reason, it's only on the Sabbath that I need to do that. The rest of the week, I seem to be okay, but Saturday afternoon, I'm wiped out and I want to go to sleep for a couple hours. Maybe I got into the habit of doing that. So that's, and finally, one more story about the importance of the Sabbath. This comes from a story that's told in a creative prayer book that I used when I was in college. I think it's still around. It had this story about the Sabbath. A great pianist was once asked, how do you handle the notes as well as you do? You know, you play the piano so beautifully. How do you manage that? And the pianist said, the notes I don't handle any better than other pianists, but the pauses between the notes, that's where the art resides, right? Is that pause that lets the music sink in for a moment, right? That's what gives the moment to the music. And so the story says, in great living as in great music, the art is in the pauses. Surely one of the enduring contributions which Judaism made to the art of living was Shabbat, the pause between the notes. You know, particularly now in this COVID environment, I don't know about you, but I've got Zoom meetings and emails and text meetings and Facebook and whatever, all this stuff. We're constantly being bombarded. It's even more important to like push that all aside and have some pause between the notes, you know, to give yourself time to reflect and all that. And that's really where the art of living is found. So it's Shabbat till we must look to restore our lives to a sense of serenity and sanctity, which the Shabbat offers in such joyous abundance. That's the story there. Okay, so The Sabbath, of course, when the commandment of the Sabbath, it says you should observe the Sabbath day. 6 days you should labor and do all your work, but on the seventh day you should rest and not do work. So the question, we're a religion of rules. So the obvious question is, what's work? What is it that we're not supposed to do on the Sabbath? And so first I'll tell you what the rabbis said, and then I'll tell you my view, which is maybe heretical. I don't know. So the rabbis said, they pointed out that in the book of Exodus, there's this long description of how to build the Mishkan, the tent of meeting, the tent of dwelling, what's called the tabernacle sometimes, right? This portable sacred tent where God's presence would dwell and Moses would go in and commune with God, right? There's an elaborate description in the book of Exodus about how to build that tent, what it's made out of, what its dimensions are, the items that go into building it. And then there's a paragraph that says, you shall observe the Sabbath and keep it holy. And then there's another long description, almost repeating what was said before, about how they built it in all the details with all the different elements and dimensions and everything else. So the rabbi said, the Torah is trying to tell us something. It gives us the instructions for how to build it. Then it said, observe the Sabbath. And then it tells us that it was built. So what the Torah is trying to tell us is the things that you do to build this tent, that's what's work. That's what you're not supposed to do on the Sabbath. And then they created what they called the 39 categories of work. If you're interested in reading those 39 categories, it's in the Robinson book on page 82. One of the reasons I recommended this book, although it's very detailed, is that it gives you crazy details like this. So you can look them up if you're interested. So the 39 categories of what the rabbis called work included not only how to build the tent, but every element that would go into the sacrifice system as well, including planting the crops, harvesting the crops, and so on. So all the elements that go into making the dough cakes that were offered in the sanctuary, those are also considered work, and they're part of the 39 categories. I have a better way to think about it, I think, in my humble opinion. So the other thing the Bible tells us is, in the first chapter of Genesis, God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and then he rested on the seventh day. And when it talks about the Sabbath later, it says we should rest on the seventh day because God rested on the seventh day. We should work 6 days a week, and we like God worked, so to speak, 6 days creating the world. So we should work 6 days, and God rested the seventh day. We should rest the seventh day. And I like that analogy much better. So here's the thing. We don't create the way God created. So that is, we don't, create light out of nothing. We don't create plants and land and all that stuff. But we do human creative activity. We do plant plants. We do harvest. We do turn the grain into flour. We turn the flour into dough, and then we bake the dough into bread. That's human creative activity. Anything that changes something that exists in nature into something different, that's human creative work. And if you think about it that way, you come up with pretty much the same list of human activities that are considered creative work. Now, that's a problem in a sense, because in the modern world, with our frenetic computer technology and everything else, one of the things that we find relaxing, I don't know about you, but many people find relaxing is painting. If you're not a painter by profession, if that's not what you do 6 days a week, it's relaxing to take out the paintbrush and the paints and the easel and the paint. It's relaxing to garden in your yard, to do the gardening, to pull out the weeds and whatever. Some people find that relaxing, or to do your knitting project, or to write something. And unfortunately, all those things I just mentioned are human creative activities. Painting takes, what are little colored oils and makes something beautiful on paper out of it. Knitting takes yarn or thread and turns it into socks or a scarf. And gardening, right? You're uprooting plants and you're planting plants, and that's human creative activity. All those things are considered work. So it is a little challenging in the modern world not to do those kinds of things because they're considered creative, even if we might find them relaxing. Fixing things, right? If you got a broken chair and you fix it, that's work. If you got a flat tire and you repair your tire, it was not a usable tire before, now it's usable, that was creative work. So all those things are creative. The one thing that is mentioned in the Bible is using fire. You're not allowed to light a fire on the Sabbath. That's like if you think about Greek mythology, and I forgot who the guy was who got fire from the gods, right? That was one of the quintessential human things. Animals can't create fire from flint, but we can, and we can then use fire and tame fire to make stuff. That's like a essentially human thing, but that's also work. Right? That's what makes it work. It's human creative activity. So you're not allowed to light a fire and you can't cook, right? If you take a raw egg and you fry it into an omelet, you've changed the nature of the egg. Most people, unless you're Rocky Balboa from the movies, right? And this guy can never, it's like indelibly etched in my mind. And he made that raw egg milkshake, and it's just really gross. Most of us don't eat raw eggs, right? We don't like eggs raw. We like them cooked, hard-boiled, scrambled, whatever. Well, you've changed it from something you wouldn't eat into something that's edible. So that's work, right? When you take raw meat and you barbecue it, that's work. So cooking is work. So those things you're not allowed to do. Now, there was a dispute in the ancient Jewish world about 2,000 years ago. There was a group of ascetic Jews who thought, since we can't light a fire, we're not going to use fire either. So we are going to sit in the wintertime in our cold houses, and when it gets dark early at night, we'll eat dinner in the dark, and we're going to eat cold food. And that's how we're going to celebrate the Sabbath. The other group of Jews said, that's ridiculous, because another passage in the Bible says that the Sabbath is supposed to be an oneg, a delight. And it's not fun to sit in the dark and the cold and eat cold food. That doesn't make it a delightful day. It's true, we're not supposed to light a fire, but it doesn't say we can't use a fire that's already lit. And so what they did was they said, you can light a fire before the Sabbath comes in. You can't add wood to that fire. You can't add oil to that fire. But if you set it up with enough wood before the Sabbath begins, or enough oil before the Sabbath begins, you can let it continue to burn and therefore keep your house light so it looks nice and bright inside, and you can celebrate and be able to see each other at dinner time. And it can keep the house warm in the winter time. And you can read with the fire and so on. And you can even keep your food warm over the Sabbath. So you can have hot food. You just can't make the fire bigger or keep it burning longer. You can't add fuel to the fire after the Sabbath comes in. So you have to make all that arrangement beforehand, and then you can use the fire. Now, some people might say that's cheating. But here's why it's really not cheating. So go back to the story of creation. God created the heavens and the earth. On day 4, he creates the sun, right? On the 7th day, he rested. But the world that he created still has the sun rising in the east and setting in the west, even on Friday, right, to Saturday. And so therefore, he didn't stop the world from working because he stopped. He just stopped changing things. And now the world operates according to the rules that he set up in the 6 days of creation. And that's exactly what the rabbis 2,000 years ago were saying about fire. You created a world in which this fire is going to burn for 24 hours, and therefore will give you light and will give you heat and can keep your food warm. right? That was part of the world you created during your 6 days of creation when you're supposed to be creating. So now the world that you created on Friday afternoon, you can continue to enjoy on Saturday. It's not cheating, right? Everybody gets the idea? So there's a very elaborate system that you will see in Orthodox homes, and we also do this, where you don't cook on the Sabbath, but you set everything up in advance so that you can have warm food. That that also explains a very common Sabbath afternoon, Sabbath lunchtime dish, main course, that was prepared by Jews in all over the world. And depending on what world they lived in, whether it was China or India or Europe or Asia, anywhere they lived, the ingredients and the spices were somewhat different, and they called it something different. But in each case, they made it the same way. It's basically a hot stew. And what you do is, I mean, nowadays you could use crock pots or wonder pots, right? Or what are they called? What are those steam pots called? Instapot. You can use an Instapot or a crock pot, that's slow cooker. And you put all the ingredients for the stew into the slow cooker on Friday afternoon, and you set it to stay on all during Saturday, and it cooks. And on Saturday at lunchtime, the stew is ready to eat, and you can have hot food. You didn't cook because you set this up on Friday, right? And now you have something hot to eat. So in Europe, the Jews of Ashkenazic world called it cholent, which came from a French word which meant hot. And in the Sephardic world, they call it chamin, which comes from the Hebrew word for hot. And so Sephardic Jews, Ashkenazic Jews, Jews all over the world would have this kind of cooked stew that they would make. That's this cholent word over here. You can also take something, if it's already been cooked, out of the refrigerator and put it on a stovetop. If you kept the stovetop on, you can put it on to heat it, to reheat it again. There was something called a blech, which means a piece of tin, that they would put over the stovetop, and the stove would be set at a very low temperature, and the tin would conduct the heat all across the entire stovetop, so that you could put pots anywhere on top of that piece of tin, and it would heat the pot up and then the food inside. So with one little flame going, you could heat up a lot of different pots. That was called a blech. You may still hear people talking about it, particularly in the Orthodox circles. So let me just say something about Ben Druzai, and then we'll change to some other subject. Ben Druzai was a thief. Ben means son in Hebrew. So he was the son of Druzai, and he was a thief. And he made it into Jewish law codes. Why? It's kind of crazy. So you have to have something cooked before Shabbat comes in. The exception was cholent, this hot food, which if you set it on the low flame was not going to be edible Friday night, but by Saturday it would be edible. But there wasn't anything you could do about it. So you would just set it aside and let it cook, and then on Saturday it was okay. That was the exception. But the normal rule was, if you were going to cook something, you had to have it cooked before the Sabbath came in, and then you could keep it warm. But how cooked, see, we're a religion of rules. How cooked is cooked? How much cooked does it have to be before the Sabbath comes in? And here's where Ben Druzai comes in. The story was that he would steal meat and then he would run away so that he wouldn't get caught. But he would run away to a place where he wouldn't get caught, and then he'd cook it and then run away again because he was afraid people were still following him. But he'd cook it just enough that it was edible. And how much was edible? About half cooked. Once it's like rare meat, right? If you cook it till it's rare, then Ben Druzai would have eaten that meat, so it'd be cooked enough. And then if you leave it on the stove and it ends up being well done, okay, but it was cooked enough that you wouldn't have to mess with the fire in order to use it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's the rule. That's called, why Ben Druzai made it into the law books. At what point would this thief eat the meat? And basically half cooked. Okay, so that's enough of that. There's most of the rules about observing the Sabbath are about changing something in the physical world around us, doing human creative activity, taking what God gave us and making it into something better, right? Fixing it somehow so it's even more pleasing to us. That's human creative work, and that's what we're not supposed to do on the Sabbath. There is one category of things which is hard for me to explain that way, and that is this idea of carrying. So the rule was, you're not allowed to carry something from inside a private domain out into the public domain, or from the public domain back into the private domain. And also, you're not allowed to carry something more than a few yards in the public domain. What is carrying? A handkerchief. So if you hold a handkerchief in your hand and you walk out your front door, that's your private domain, and you go out into the street, you have carried the handkerchief from your private domain into the public domain, and that's considered work. I don't understand that exactly. It's hard for me to wrap my head around, but that was considered work. On the other hand, if you took that same handkerchief and you wrapped it around your neck like a Texan, now you're not carrying the handkerchief, you're wearing the handkerchief, and you are allowed to wear clothes. So you can wear the handkerchief out in public, walk down the street wearing the handkerchief, and then if you want to, when you get to the synagogue, use the handkerchief to wipe your forehead. That's fine. Now you're in a private domain. You're not carrying from one domain to the other, right? This idea of carrying caused problems for particularly Orthodox Jews who are strict about this, because putting keys in your pocket is considered carrying. So once you lock your front door and then you walk down the street carrying the keys in your pocket, you're carrying. Well, how do you lock your door if you can't carry your keys? So some clever people designed a belt buckle where the key would fit in the belt buckle. So now you're not carrying the key, you're wearing the key. Right? Other people would create this fancy pin. So you're not carrying the key, you're wearing it as a decoration. Other people would stick it under the mat or under the flower pot in front of the door, if you want to try that. It's complicated. If you have children, right, you can't carry your children. You can't even push them in a carriage. Okay. So here's what Orthodox people did. And this again goes back to Talmudic times. They created a legal fiction. They said, you're not allowed to transfer from a private domain to a public domain or walk a certain distance in the public. But if you're living in a Jewish neighborhood and you take a string and you run a string around the entire neighborhood with a series of poles set up to hold the string, you now have created an artificial private domain. And now you can carry anything within that entire area because it's now all part of a private domain. And that string is called an eruv. So I'm just mentioning this because it's still used in Orthodox circles. United Orthodox Synagogue, the synagogue that's near us, has an eruv set up around their neighborhood so that their members can use their baby strollers and carry and whatever to take to shul. And there's been some discussion about whether we want to extend their eruv around to include Beth Yeshurun in our area, in case there are a few members. Not too many of our members are concerned about this, but a few might be, so that they can carry things also. I just mentioned this. It's not something that most conservative Jews, particularly in Houston, Texas, are concerned about. Some conservative Jews, like in New York and Los Angeles, are concerned about carrying on the Sabbath. And certainly Orthodox Jews are concerned about it. Reform Jews, probably not at all. But there's this issue of carrying. So I just want to let you know about that. The laws of Sabbath, the laws of work, the things you're not allowed to do on the Sabbath, also apply to festival days. So there's 3 pilgrimage festivals, right? We talked about this last time. Sukkot, the Feast of Booths, Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and Shavuot, the Feast of Giving the Ten Commandments, right? Those three festivals are considered like the Sabbath, kind of like the Sabbath. You're not supposed to work on them. However, for Sukkot and Passover that last a week long, only the first 2 days and last 2 days of these holidays are considered days you're not allowed to do any work. So the first 2 days of Sukkot, and then at the end, Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah are considered festival days you can't work. First 2 days, last 2 days of Passover, and the 2 days of Shavuot are all considered days you can't work. But the rabbis made an exception for these days. So this is the last thing. This is all very technical stuff, and I'm happy to go over it again if you want to be observant in these areas. I'm happy to repeat it and go over it with you sometime. And I just wanted to expose you to these ideas so you're aware of them. So they made some leniencies for Yom Tov, which is the word for festival. And here's the reason why. They wanted you still to be able to have hot food on a festival. And it really was impossible to set up, they felt, a fire that would burn for 48 hours. You could put enough wood in the fireplace or have enough oil in the lamp to burn for 24 hours. But to create one that would last for 48 hours with the technology they had was not possible. So they said, you can now transfer fire. What does that mean? You can add more wood to the fire in your fireplace, or you can add more oil to the fire in your fireplace. Or if you're lighting candles, you can't light a candle with a match, strike a match and light a brand new fire. But if the candle's already burning and you take a little stick and you light the stick from the candle, you can now have transferred the fire to the stick, and then you can use the fire on the stick to light another candle, or to light your gas stove, or to light some other thing else with gas. So you can transfer fire from one place to another. You just can't start a whole new fire, okay? And you can also add fuel to the fire that already exists, so it can continue to burn for 48 hours. And then they said, and we want you to have hot food, so you're allowed to cook. So you can cook new hot food for both days of the festival, during the festival. That you're allowed to do. And the last thing was carrying. They allowed you to carry from the private domain to public domain to private domain. Why did they allow carrying? Because in the days they were talking about, nobody had indoor plumbing. So if you want to be able to cook, you probably need water to boil things. And there was a well outside that you need to draw the water from and then carry it inside. So that required carrying. So these three things they allowed you to do on Yom Tov that they did not allow you to do on the Sabbath. Oh yeah, one more technical thing and then a couple changes that our movement made. So muktzah is another concept that you probably should be aware of, particularly if you're going to an Orthodox home. But still some conservative Jews are concerned about this as well. Things that don't have any purpose on Shabbat, like a pen or a pencil or matches, right? Because you're not supposed to light a fire, you're not supposed to write, you're not supposed to cut things, so scissors, those kinds of things. If they don't have a purpose that you can use them for on Shabbat, then you shouldn't even touch them. You should like set them aside and don't even look at it. Put them away so you won't even be tempted to use them. Set them aside and don't even touch them. And that's called making a fence around the law. You shouldn't be tempted to have to use them. So we set them aside and say, not only should I not light a fire, I'm not even going to touch a book of matches because I might be tempted to light a fire with them if I touch them. That's muktzah. Okay, two modern things. Electricity and driving. So when electricity was invented, the question was, is it like fire, right? If using electricity, flipping a light switch is like striking a match, you can't turn on the lights on Shabbat. Our movement decided in the 1950s that electricity is not fire. So we allow people to turn lights on and off and to use electricity for other kinds of purposes. This is a real problem, by the way, in hotels these days, because almost no hotels anymore use regular keys. They're all electronic keys. And so Orthodox Jews who go to hotels now have to get special rooms. They still use old-fashioned keys because they can't use the magnetic key to open their doors. But our movement said it's not fire. However, you can't use electricity for something you wouldn't be allowed to do anyway, which is like cooking. So if you have an electric stove, you still can't cook, right? You can turn the electric stove on and leave it on for Shabbat, or you can put it on a timer. You can use a hot plate to put on a timer that goes on and off automatically. That's another thing too, timers, right? If you set up any electricity on timers before Shabbat comes in, right, then the world you live in on Shabbat is the world you created on Friday afternoon. And that's what many Orthodox people do with their lights, the electric lights. They put their electric lights on timers so that they go off at midnight, come on again when it starts to get dark in the evening or whatever, when they want the light again. And again, that's not cheating because it's the world they set up and created on Friday afternoon when they're still allowed to do creative work. Now they don't have to touch the electric lamp at all on Shabbat. It's automatically going on and off, just like the sun comes up in the morning. Finally, driving. So the electric cars are separate. There's a question about, if electricity is not a fire, so you can maybe use an electric car. But the internal combustion engine in regular cars is a fire, right? It's a spark that ignites the gas and burns gasoline. So it's fire. And so Orthodox Jews who are observant don't drive to the synagogue on Shabbat. They have to walk. And that's why if you want to convert with an Orthodox rabbi, they will ask you to live in walking distance to the synagogue so that you don't violate the Sabbath. Because if you're going to join their synagogue, they want you to be Sabbath observant, and that means no driving. Again, our movement in the 1950s decided that driving is okay if you're driving to the synagogue, and I personally have extended that to driving for a Sabbath purpose, right? So if you're going to somebody's home for Shabbat dinner, for instance, or going to a Shabbat event, then you could drive to that event because you're using the car for a Shabbat purpose. Again, driving to the store is a different thing. Doing commercial transactions is something that's also forbidden on the Sabbath. So you couldn't buy and sell stuff. But driving to the synagogue, our movement said was okay. Any questions so far? That's enough about the rules. Now I'm going to go back to some practical things. Any questions about the rules? I should probably check the
I have some questions.
Sure. Oh, go. Okay, go ahead.
So we aren't allowed to create on Sabbath.
Right.
But still, we're supposed to be having an enjoyable time.
Yes.
Unfortunately, all of my hobbies involve creating things.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Right. Okay. So let me come back to that in a second. Let me just answer a couple of the other questions that are more that I definitely need to answer, but I do want to come back to that. That's an important question. So what about Shabbat candles? I'm glad you asked that question. So we light the Sabbath candles on Friday evening, and this became one of the most important and most widely observed rituals in Jewish tradition all over the world, lighting candles on Friday afternoon or Friday evening. So much so that many of you probably know about the Conversos. These were Spanish Jews in the 1400s who the church tried to convert to Catholicism under pain of death. And so some of them decided to pretend to convert to Catholicism, but practice Judaism in private. And one of the things that they continued to do in private would be light candles. But they couldn't light candles in their living room because the window, the candles would show through the window and somebody on the street might see them lighting candles and then and then turned them into the authorities, the Catholic Church, where they'd be tortured to death, basically. So they couldn't light candles in the living room. So they would light the candles in a central room in the house, in a private room in the house, or in the basement. And they would do it every Friday afternoon. And this went on for generations. And eventually the family forgot they were Jewish, but they had this tradition of lighting candles in the basement every Friday afternoon, and nobody remembered why anymore. That's how important lighting candles was to the Jewish people. So where did this idea come from? This came from the idea that you should have a fire on the Sabbath already lit, so that you have light in the house, so that it's not dark and gloomy, and so you can have warmth, and so you can have hot food. So the ascetic Jews disappeared, the ones who wanted to sit in the cold and eat cold food. They disappeared, and the other Jews like wanted to pound their position home, saying not only can you have a fire at home, but you should have a fire at home. And so Friday afternoon, before the Sabbath begins, you will light 2 candles so that it will be bright and cheery in your home. And not only did they then say that, but they went another step further. I mean, they were really audacious. The blessing you receive, there's a blessing you recite when you light the Sabbath candles. And it's, thank you, God, who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to light the Shabbat candles, right? God commanded us to light the Shabbat candles. It's not in the Torah. There's nothing in the Torah that says God commanded lighting Shabbat candles. The rabbis said you will light Shabbat candles. How did they explain this blessing? They said, because God said, go to the judges of your day and they will explain the law. We're the judges and we're telling you to light candles. So therefore, God's telling you to light candles. Say the blessing. So that's how powerful they thought their position was, and it was, because everybody says this blessing. And that's how important lighting candles is on Shabbat. But here's the thing. You're supposed to light them before sunset. And in the winter time, as we're approaching now, sunset is going to be 5 o'clock. And most people aren't home yet. Now what? Okay, so I can't tell you. Lighting the fire is one of those things that's expressly mentioned in the Bible. Not allowed to light a fire on Shabbat. So I can't tell you it's okay to light candles on Shabbat. But what I will tell you is that most of our congregants light candles when they get home, whenever that is, when they're about to start their meal. They light the candles and they say the blessing, even though it's already dark outside. And I can also say I understand that because of the importance of this ritual, which, as I just explained, is really, really important. It's became so important in Jewish tradition to light candles on Friday evening. So is it forbidden by the Torah? Yeah. But do Jews do it? Yeah. Probably most Jews who light Shabbat candles light them when it's dark outside, because most Jews aren't Orthodox. So
I have a question.
yeah.
This is Cosette. So what about pilot lights? Because that's already lit.
Yeah. Okay, good. Great question. Right. So if you have a gas stove that has a pilot light, ours now has the electronic ignition, which is a whole different problem. Like it's a little causes a spark. But I used to have the pilot light, and that made it really easy for the festival days, because then you're just transferring the light from the pilot to the bigger thing. You're just adding more fuel to the fire that's already there. The pilot light doesn't really help you on Shabbat because you're not allowed to add more fuel to the fire on Shabbat. So technically what you're supposed to do is keep one of your burners on low, put one of those sheets, metal sheets, to cover over the entire surface of your burners, right? So that heats up, and then you can put pots on there and keep stuff warm on top of that metal sheet. That's technically what you do. Now, how many of our members do that? Probably not too many. More of them know about it. I don't know how many of them know about it. If they've been to an Orthodox Jewish home on the Sabbath, they've seen that probably happening. But so what is practical? I mean, am I expecting you all to do all these rules? Not necessarily, but to do something to recognize the Sabbath day, right? And you have to negotiate that for yourself in the life that you are living in, right? So if your job requires you to work on Saturday and a note from your rabbi isn't going to help, I'm happy to write a note. But if that's not going to help, and you need more seniority before you can take off Saturdays, for places that are open on Sunday, you can volunteer to do Sunday, because a lot of Christians don't, for obvious reasons, don't want to work on Sunday, and that's not a problem for us. So if you can switch a Saturday for a Sunday, that's great. But if you can't, you can't. And I'm not going to say you should be homeless because you can't find a job, right? So you have to figure out, well, I guess I'm going to have to work these hours on Saturday in order to keep my job so that I can put a roof over my head and food on the plate. But what can I do on Shabbat? Can I try to get home on Friday at a reasonable hour so I can light the candles when I light them, say the Kiddush, there's a blessing over wine. Diane's going to do this in the next hour, talk about the candles and the wine, and have a meal with friends and family when we're out of this pandemic. On a Friday night, enjoy the Sabbath, right? Take that pause between the notes on Friday night at least. Can I do that? If I have to work on Saturday morning, can I take off in the afternoon, or vice versa? Can I get off in the morning and go to synagogue and then work in the afternoon? Is there some way I can get a couple hours to take a Shabbat nap and maybe read a little Jewish text or something on a Saturday afternoon or something like that? What can you, the question is, what can you do to sort of push that, to create that space, or that really a time period that gives you a pause and a rest and a way to experience the Shabbat? Now, about the painting, again, I can't tell you it's okay to paint and garden and do knitting and whatever, because it's creative activity. And you'll have to decide whether you feel like it's relaxing. The aspect of the relaxation is enough to give you a feeling of Shabbat, that that you want to do it anyway. People sometimes ask me, what do you do if you can't do any of these things? What on earth do you do all day? And it's interesting, what I used to be able to do back in the day, right? People used to play cards, for instance. I know that's a crazy concept. I don't know if anybody still has a deck of cards, but people used to play cards. They used to play Scrabble. They used to do kind of board games. You can do all of that on Shabbat. None of that involves changing any of the pieces. You're just moving them around the board. If you do that with friends, that's kind of a social thing to do, and it's a relaxing thing to do, and it's fun. Spending time with people. One of the things that Diane and I do is we have a couple people that we study with on a Saturday afternoon. So we call them up, we use the phone, and we'll have a text that we share, and we'll read a book together, a Jewish subject. But so the kind of creative activities that you find relaxing, I'm not going to say, I understand that. I'm very sympathetic to that argument, and so maybe just do that for a while, and eventually, if you find that you can do other things instead, then do other things instead, or you'll figure that out. The main thing is I think to make the Sabbath day special and different from the rest of the week, and give your mind time to relax and your body time to relax, and think about the important things in life, however you do that, I think. If they stay on and have a timer, let's see, what is this? Would it be okay to light Shabbat candles after dark since it's Sabbath activity? Yeah, so I kind of covered the lighting candles late thing. Some people, by the way, use electric candles. I used to live in Los Angeles where there were earthquakes, not too often, but sometimes. And people would be afraid to leave their Shabbat candles and go to synagogue. So what do? There is an opinion that says you can use electric lights, but if you do that, you should designate them as your Shabbat candles. Don't use like the chandelier over the dining table that you use all week. Get special candlesticks with flickering candle light bulbs or something like that sort of have that Shabbat feel to them, right? And then put those on a timer so that they're your Shabbat candles. There is something magic, I think, still. I think it's a very psychological thing about humans and fire. The real fire is really something. I don't know why, but I think maybe it's just me. Okay, any other questions so far? Let me go back to the outline here and see what else we missed. Okay, so Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote an essay on the Sabbath. It's almost like a short book called The Sabbath. He writes very poetically, and if you're interested, it's kind of a fun read. Should be pretty easy to get on Kindle or something. He talks about holiness and time, and he notes in the book that the first thing that God created that was holy was the Sabbath, right? In the second chapter of Genesis, when he creates Shabbat, he calls it a holy day. That's the first thing that's declared holy, is not something in space, but something in time, right? And so that takes holiness and time, Heschel says, has priority over holiness and space. In the Ten Commandments, it's slightly different between Exodus and Deuteronomy. The Ten Commandments are repeated in Deuteronomy. In Exodus, it says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And in Deuteronomy, it says, observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Slightly different verb. And so the rabbi said, well, that must try to teach us something different. What is different between remember and observe? And so one way they understood the difference is remember to do things like rest. Remember to rest on the Sabbath. It's the commandment about doing things. And observing is observing not to do things like work, right? So that's what they said. What remember is a commandment to rest, and observe is a commandment not to work. And the other way they suggested a thing to think about it is you remember the Sabbath during the rest of the week. So it's they analogized it to a lion in the forest. When a lion moves to the forest, the animals hear it coming and they get out of the way before it comes because they're afraid, and they stay out of the way after the lion leaves until they feel comfortable and it's safe to come back again, right? So he breaks the animals in front of him, and he kind of creates a wake of space before the animals come back again. And that's like the Sabbath. You remember the Sabbath before it gets there by preparing for it, buying the food you want to make, cooking the food, setting up your timers, doing all the work you do to create your Shabbat environment. You do that all before Shabbat, like the lion in the forest. And then after the Shabbat leaves, you try to bring some of that peace and happiness and quietness into the rest of the week after it's gone, right? So the part before and after is the remembering, and on the Sabbath day itself is observing. The Sabbath is sometimes analogized to a bride or a queen, and that gave rise to the Friday night service where we sing a song called Lecha Dodi, where we welcome the Sabbath bride into our congregation. It's interesting that the Sabbath was thought of in feminine terms, but there it is. And it's also considered a taste of the world to come, right? So in the world to come, when the Messiah comes, we won't have to work anymore at all. Every day is going to be the Sabbath. At least that's in the imagination. So so this is like this flavor of what it'll be like when the Messiah comes, is we won't be having to work. And I just mentioned the Kabbalah Shabbat service. It begins with 7 psalms, one for each day of the week, and we sing Lecha Dodi, and so on. Lighting candles, we talked about, saying the blessing over wine. We have 2 chalot, 2 loaves of bread. We also eat on the Friday night dinner. 2 chalot because there were 2 portions of manna that the Israelites ate in the wilderness for 40 years. They would collect a double portion of manna on Friday, so they didn't have to go out and collect manna on the Sabbath, right? God didn't want them to work on the Sabbath having to collect food. So they collected a double portion of manna Friday. So in memory of that, we have 2 loaves of bread that we celebrate the Sabbath dinner meal with. We also bless children, and there's other songs that we sing. Diane can go over some of those. And normally I would invite you to our home for a Friday night dinner to see what that's like, but I can't do that this year. maybe in the spring, late spring, I don't know, we'll see. Next year, we do have some Friday night dinners typically at Beth Yeshurun also, not this year, obviously. But when there's a Shabbat dinner at Beth Yeshurun, you can see we do all these elements at the Friday night dinner. And that's really one of the, again, something that Achad Ha'am mentioned about Jews observing the Sabbath and then the Sabbath keeping the Jews. This Friday night, I think, this time of fellowship with friends and family over a nice meal is something really that has kept the Jewish people together. Okay, practical Shabbat. So we kind of did talk about practical Shabbat. I would say definitely light candles. Again, I can't tell you even if late, but I will say even if they're late, light the candles. Make kiddush over the wine or grape juice. And have a nice dinner with friends and family when we can. Spend some time studying. Go to services if you're able to, Friday night or Saturday. Limit the amount of work that you do on Shabbat. And then there's a service that ends the Sabbath on Saturday night called Havdalah. And you probably got an email from Liz Vincent, who's kind of one of the leaders in the museum minyan. They've been doing a Zoom Havdalah Saturday night. It's only about 15-20 minutes. So you can Zoom in. There's about 20 people who are there, but you're welcome to join them. And we do the short Havdalah service. Oh, this is very important. It's not an all or nothing proposition. So don't feel like I can't observe the Sabbath strictly, so I'll just forget about it. In my opinion, it's not hypocritical to have a full Friday night dinner, even lighting candles late, even if you have to go to work on Saturday, right? You are doing something to recognize the Sabbath. So whatever you're doing, that's what you're doing. And eventually maybe you can do more or not, but it's not hypocritical to do some, even if you can't do everything. Some people don't want to do it unless they can do it perfectly. And I think that that's what they call letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Right. The more you do, the better. And don't let concern about being perfect stop you. Okay, so that's enough of that. Any last questions?
Rabbi Morgan, I have a question.
Yeah.
We really want to start incorporating Shabbat into our weekly schedule, and we have, every now and then, but it's sometimes challenging to know exactly where to begin. And I've looked for sort of very elementary, step-by-step instructions for, a simple Shabbat service at home. So do you have any recommendations or resources for simple steps to take, like which prayer, when, what stage?
Yeah. Okay, so let me just type this into the comments here. I think it's this website is haggadahs.org. It might be .com. I'm not sure. Maybe it's .com. They normally sell Haggadahs, which is the book that's used for the Seder meal, the first night at Passover meal. But they also have some books for little booklets that we use for Friday night. And there's one called, well, you can take a look at the different ones. They're described. I would pick one of the booklets that has all the Hebrew put into English letters, transliterated. It's .com. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And it didn't come through the chat. I'm not sure.
It's not in the chat box?
I don't see it. Maybe I'm missing something.
Okay, it's called Haggadahs Are Us, HAGGADHS, Haggadahs Are Us.
Thank you.
.com. And they have some of these little booklets that are used for Friday night. They might be called benchers. That's what they're called in Yiddish. Birkonim is what they're called in Hebrew. And you can pick one that has the Hebrew transliterated. That's the Hebrew words are spelled out in English letters. That's the best way to start. And they have all the blessings. And Diane will discuss some of it in the class that you're about to go into.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Could women have a class on preparing for Shabbat? Yeah, there is a challah baking class that our sisterhood does periodically, every couple of months, they have a challah baking program where they bake challah together, and they tell you what the ingredients are to get. Oh, Diane's just joined us. Okay, so I'm going to get off. Hi, Diane. Bye, Diane.
Thank you, Rabbi Morgan.
Thank you, Rabbi Morgan.
All right. Thank you all for joining me. I'm going to leave you in good hands.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. You know, I'll find out from Sisterhood when they're next planning on doing a challah program. But Steve asked me if I would go over the Friday night prayers. And so I'm going to do that right now, if you'd like. How about that? Is that good for you?
Yes, that would be
Perfect.
great.
Okay, great. So let me find those folders. I'm going to share screen, which is not the thing I'm best at, but I'll try to do it. Here we go. And so I can show you the words. Okay, let's see. Adult Hebrew. Here, this is a link. Siddur.
I love your pumpkin background.
Oh, thank you. I didn't even do it on purpose. I have like an automatic thing for that. Let's see. Does that work? Oh, help. Here we go. Okay, sorry. Let's see, I'm trying to think where this would be. Transliterated, here it is. Transliterated Siddur, here we go. Hopefully this will work. Copy. Let's come back to it, okay? I'm really sorry, but let's see, maybe I can do it from here. Will come on. We'll come back to it at the end of class, I promise, okay? We'll come back. I just am having a little bit of trouble finding that folder right now. Instead, let's start with our Hebrew reading. Did people get a chance? Did you see the videos that I made that were sent out to you? Did people get that? Yes? No? Okay. So I'll ask Lisa to send it out again. Rabbi Morgan sent it out to you. I made videos so that you could practice your Hebrew. So, okay.
I did get them on the mail. On the
Oh, I'm so glad. I really think that will help you.
I got them as well.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear. If you practice with that, I think it'll make a big difference. Here we go. Adult Hebrew 2021. Shalom Hebrew. Oh, let's start with the Aleph Bet song if we can. Here we go. Okay. We're going to sing our great song now. You have to unmute because you're the echo, right? I sing the words and then you sing them back. Okay. Can you see the chart?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Aleph, Bet, Fet.
Aleph, Bet, Bet.
Gimel, Dalet, Hey.
Gimel, Dalet, Bey.
Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet.
Van, Chayin, Et, Tet.
Yod, Kaf, Chaf.
Yod, Kaf,
Lamed, Mem, Nun.
Vav, Menun.
Samech, Ayin, Pei, Fei.
Samekayen Pefe.
Sadi Kufresh.
Sadi
Fresh.
Shin Sin Tav.
Shin.
Sin
Sin.
Tav.
Good. Now, when we originally sent out the attachments, there's also a copy of this where I didn't write the names of the letters in. So after you learn this well, I'd love for you to do it from the copy that doesn't have the letters written in, the names of the letters. Let's do it again. Aleph, Bet, Vet.
Aleph, Bet, Vet.
Gimel, Dalet, Hey.
Gimel, Dalet, Hey.
Vav, Zayin, Chet, Het.
Vav, Ayin, Het, Het.
Good. Yod, Kaf, Chaf.
Yud, Kaf,
Chaf.
Lamed, Mem, Nun.
Lamed, Mem, Nun.
Samech, Ayin, Pei, Fei.
Samekayen Pefe.
Sadi, Kuf, Resh.
Sadi Kufresh.
Fresh.
Shin, Sin, Tav.
Shin.
Sin Tav.
Good. So I'm hoping that people will practice, okay? You'll practice. We sent out a copy of a video with the song, and it even has the letters. And so let's see if I can share that just to show you. It's very goofy and embarrassing, but maybe you'd be willing to do it anyway. Find that. Here we go. Screen sharing is paused. Can you not see this? You can't see this, right?
No.
It says my screen sharing is paused. Let me try again. Okay. Screen sharing. Can you see the screen now?
Yes,
Yep.
it's loading.
Okay. Let me know if you can hear it or not.
While we're here in Hebrew school, we're going to.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a little embarrassing, but it's also very useful. Here we go.
While we're here in Hebrew school, we're going to have some fun and sing the Hebrew alphabet, a song for everyone. It's going to be quite simple, 'cause all you'll have to do is sing the letters after me. Then I'll sing after you. Aleph, Bet, Vet.
Aleph, Bet,
Hey.
Hey.
Ein, Het, Het.
Ein
Yud,
Het.
Kaf.
Yod Kaf Chaf.
Lamed, Mem, Nun.
Lamed Mem Nun.
Samech, Ayin, Pei, Fei.
Samekayen Pefe.
Adi,
Sadi Kufresh.
Let's learn the
Okay, you get the idea. If you practice with that, it should be really easy, right? So
right.
let's go on and do the readings from the book. Share screen again. All right, let's start by reviewing just a little bit of chapter 1. So in chapter 1, we learned this letter, Bet, right? So let's do line 5. Oh, it says my screen sharing is paused. Why would that be? Darn. Does everyone have a copy of the book? Yes?
Yes, we do.
I do. Yes.
Oh, good, because I don't know why I can't share my screen. I'm not sure what's going on, but I have a feeling it's an internet problem. Good, well, book is even better. Okay, so let's just very, very quickly review Beth. Let's do line 5 on page 4. Okay, let's do this. I'll read the first one, you read the second one, I'll read the third one, you read the fourth one, etc. Okay? Bob.
Bob.
Oh, okay. So I'll tell you what, I'll read all of line 5 all by myself, and then we'll go back and I'll read the first syllable. You read the next syllable. I read the third syllable. You read the fourth syllable, etc. Okay? And feel free to make mistakes. Feel free. You are welcome to make all the mistakes you like. Here we go. Line 5. Bob, 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 Bob. Okay, now I'd love to hear you do it. I'll do the first one, you do the second one. Bob,
Bob.
Baba,
Baba.
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 How do you do the last one on the line?
Bob.
Bob. Right, Bob. Bob.
Bob.
Right, because there's no vowel under the second bet. So if I was just, for example, 2 things to remember. The first thing to remember is that we're reading vertically, right? Down, down, down. So it's consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. So it's Bob, right? Bob. We're going bet, ba, right? Hebrew doesn't go across in the same way, left to right, totally horizontal. Hebrew is down, over, down, over, down, over, from the right to the left, right? Okay. So that's the first thing to remember. And the second thing to remember is we're making the sound of the letter and not the name of the letter. So we're not saying beta, we're saying ba, because bet sounds like a B in English, right? So I'm, in order to make it just a little more interesting and move a little faster, that's why I often will sort of trade back and forth with my students when we're reading. So if I read Bob, you would read Baba. I would read Baba. You would read Bob. I would read Baba, and you would read Bob, like that. Okay? So let's try the line again. What was that? All right, I thought somebody asked something. So let's try again. Bob.
Bob.
Baba.
Bob.
Baba.
Bob.
Good. Okay. So we reviewed bet. All right. Now let's do the bottom of page 5, line 4. Now we've added the letter tav. Okay. So we're on line 4. And I'll read the whole line once, and then we'll go back and do the same thing we did on page 4. Bat, ba, ta, Bob, tot, but, ta. I'll do it one more time. But, ta, Bob, tot, but, ta. Good. Let's do it now where I do the first one, you do the second one. Bat,
Ba. Ta.
Ta.
Bob,
Ba.
Ta.
Ba.
that was tot. Tot.
Ta.
Bat,
Ba. Ta.
bata. Very good. Very good. Now let's read the line together. Bat,
Ba.
bata,
Ba.
Bob,
Bob.
tot,
Bat.
bot,
Bat.
bata.
Ba.
Bat.
Good. Okay. Top of page 6. Let's start on line 3. I'll say each little word group, and then you say it after me. Starting on line 3 on the top of page 6. And this is letter shin, right? Sha, sha,
Sha. Sha.
sha, sha,
Sha. Sha.
sha, sha,
Sha.
sha, sha.
Sha. Sha.
Good. And line 4, right? And that is shin, bet, right? Shab,
Sha.
Bet.
Bet.
bat, shot,
Sha.
bash.
Ash.
Good. Let's do line 4 again. Shab, bat, shot, bash. Line 5. Bat,
Ta.
tat, ba,
Shabbat.
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 Good. Okay. Line 6. Bottom of 6, sorry. Bottom of 6. Line 1. If I just say the name of the letter, I'm just going to say the name of the letter, okay? Sha,
Sha.
bet, bet. Ta. You know where I am? Maybe I'm not being clear. We're on this bottom half of page 6. If you'll repeat after me, line 1 at the bottom of page 1. Sha,
1. Oh. Sha. Okay.
bet,
Bet.
bet,
Bet.
ta,
Ta.
bet,
Ta.
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 Good. Line 2. Sha,
Sha.
ba,
Ta. Sha.
tav, sha,
Sha.
tav,
Tav.
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 Okay, line 3. Ba,
Bab.
shin,
Shin.
tav,
Tav.
shin,
Shin.
ba,
Ba.
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 Okay, line 4. Can someone tell me if you were going to write first little syllable, shin, in English, how would you spell it?
SHA.
S-H-A, very good. And how would we say it? We would say sha, right? Sha. How would we spell the next one? Bet, Bet. How would we spell that?
But.
COTA.
Mm,
A.
we would be
A.
B-A, ba, B-A, ba.
Ba.
How would you spell it?
A.
T-A, right, T-A, ta, good. Okay, so, and then bet, how would we spell it again?
BA.
B-A, ba, right? All right, let's go to line 5 and we'll read it again. I'll read the first one. I'll read the line once by myself and then you'll read it with me. Ta, ba, ta, sha, ta, sha. Try to read it with me. Ta,
Ta.
ba,
Ba.
ta,
Ta.
sha,
Ta.
ta,
Ta.
sha.
Cha.
Right. And remember, in Hebrew, we don't say the name of the letter, just the beginning sounds of the letter, right? So we wouldn't say shina, we would say sha, and we wouldn't say tava, we'd say ta, right? Okay, line 6. I'll read it and then we'll read it together. Ba, shin, tav, ba,
Tav.
shin, ba. Let's read it together. Ba,
Huh?
shin,
Shin. Shin.
tav,
Tav.
ba,
Ba.
shin,
Mm.
ba. Is there anyone who'd like to volunteer? You don't have to, but would anybody volunteer to read line 6 for us for the class? Oh, thank you, Dana. Go ahead.
Ba. Shin. Ta. Ba. Shin. Ba.
Metsuyan, that was great. Okay. All right, let's continue on page 7, on line 7, okay? I'm going to read it once, and then I'd like you to try to do it after me, echo after me. Tabat, Shabbat, ta, bashat, bashash, babat. Okay, now we'll do line 7 again. Please read after me. Tabat,
Tabat.
Shabbat, ta,
Shabbat.
bashat,
Bashat.
bashash,
Bashat.
babat,
Shabbat.
Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Shabbat,
Shabbat.
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 I bet you know this word now. Shabbat,
Shabbat.
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 Okay, good. All right. Did anybody get a chance to listen to the videos yet? Maybe not. I would encourage you to practice the videos for chapters 1 and 2, and I'll tell you why. Because first of all, I just did the exercises by myself, so there's not all of this back and forth. You can just read along with me. I guarantee you that if you did the chapter like 5 times with the recording's about 10 minutes long for chapter 1, that after you did it 5 times, you would read it very comfortably because there's nothing like repetition, right? And if you only do it once a week with me, unless you have a very young mind. Like when I was in 3rd grade, I could learn anything, just do it once and I knew it. But now I have to do things over and over. So the older you get, the more it's going to be like that. So I would encourage repetition. But I do want to tell you, I learned to read Hebrew as an adult. I was 29 when I learned to read Hebrew. Of course, that was a very long time ago for me. 29 was a very long time ago. But I learned it as an adult. And I know exactly what it's like to learn it as an adult because I did too. So I'm telling you that you can learn it. Be very patient. Don't let yourself get frustrated, right? Be very kind to yourself and just say, I just need to do this over and over till I get it. And we're all moving at our own speed. Okay, my sermon for the day. All right, page 9. Here we go. Line 1. Oh, here's our letter, mem. Our letter is mem.
Mem.
Mem. Here we go, line 1. I'll read it once and then you'll do it after me. Ma. Mem. Ma. Mem. Ma. Okay, let's do it together. Mem.
Mem.
Ma.
Ma.
Mem.
Mem.
Ma.
Ma.
Mem.
Mem.
Ma.
Ma.
Very good. Line 2. Ma.
Ma.
Oh, I'll do it once by myself and then you'll do it with me. Ma. Bet.
Ma. Bet.
Ta. Ma. Sha. Now do it with me. Ma.
Ma.
Bet.
Bet.
Tav.
Ta.
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 Ma.
Ma.
Sha.
Cha.
Good, good. Line 3. I'll read it first. Ma, shin, sha, ma, shin. Now again, ma,
Ma.
ma,
Ma.
shin, sha,
Ta.
ma,
Ma.
shin.
Chin.
Okay, line 4. Ba, ma, sha, mab. All right, let's go back on line 4 and you'll echo me. Ba, ma, mash.
Mash.
Ba, sha,
Basha.
mab.
Mab.
Line 5. Mom, Shabbat, ma.
Bat.
Now echo me. Mom, Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Shama,
Shama.
Mash. Good. Okay. Let's see.
Hebrew Premier.
Just answering somebody. Okay, here we go. Can anybody read line 3 for me? Would somebody like to try reading line 3?
Is this on page 9?
Yeah, page 9, line 3.
Okay, I'll try.
Oh, great, thank you.
Ma, shin, sha, ma, Shin.
Good. Kol hakavod. That was excellent. Okay. All right. Let's continue on page 10. All right. Beginning of the top of the page, please. I'll read it once and then you can echo me. Shama, mash, mama, mash, shaba, bat. Okay, let's do the line together. Shama,
Shama.
mash,
Mash.
mama,
Mama.
mash,
Mash.
shaba,
Shaba.
bat.
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 Good. Line 2. Mash, mab, mat, mama, mata, maba. Okay, with me now, echoing me. Mash,
Mash.
mab,
Mab.
mat,
Mat.
mama,
Mama.
mata,
Mata.
maba.
Aba.
Good. Line 3. Bama, shama, tama, bat, bama, tama. Okay, echo me. Bama,
Bama.
shama,
Shama.
tama,
Tama.
bat,
Bat.
bama,
Bama.
tama.
Tama.
Okay, here it's a little harder because they're 2 syllables, right? I'll read it first, line 4. Ma shab, ma tash, ma bat, ma mat, ba mash. Okay, echoing me. Ma shab,
Mashab.
ma tash,
Ma tash.
ma bat,
Ma
Bat.
ma mat,
ma
Mat.
ba mash.
ma
Line 5. Tamash, Shabbat, tamat, mabash, mashash. Was that too fast?
Mm.
No.
Was that a little too fast?
As long as we can echo you after.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
Mhm.
that was line 5 that I just did, right? Here we
Yeah.
go.
Yes, ma'am.
Tamash,
Tamash.
Shabbat,
Shabbat.
tamat,
Tamat.
Mat.
mabash,
Mabash.
mashash.
Masash.
Okay, good. Line 6. Shabbat, shamash, matash, mashash, shamash.
Shamash.
Right, good. Here we go. Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Shabbat.
shamash,
Shamash.
matash,
Matash.
mashash,
Masash.
shamash.
Shamash.
Good. Line 7. Shama, shama, shabbat, shabbat, shamash. Now I'll do vermouth.
Shamash.
And now we'll echo. Shama,
Shama.
shamash,
Shamash.
Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Shamash.
Shamash.
And line 8. Shabbat, Shamash, Shabbat. I'm going to see, sorry. Sorry.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. All right, last 2 words. Shamash, Shabbat. Now echo me. Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Shamash,
Shamash.
Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Shamash,
Shamash.
Shabbat.
Shabbat.
Good. Let's see. Read it. Okay. So the word for the helper candle on the Chanukiah, let's go back to page 9 for a second at the top of the page. So on the Chanukiah, that's the candelabra that we use for the holiday of Hanukkah. You can see it in the picture there. The middle, it's usually in the middle. The candle that is higher up on the Chanukiah than any of the other candles is called the Shamash. And that candle is the helper candle. That's the candle that you light, and then you light all the other candles with that. Okay? So the exercise here, which I'm not going to do right now, but which you can do, is to look for that word shamash on the page here and circle every time that it appears. Okay? And there are some words that are similar, and there's some words that are dissimilar. And they're asking you which words are similar and which words are different, but that's okay. Next week, maybe we'll try groups. We'll do breakout groups and people can do some of these exercises together. All right. Can we turn to page 12? Oh, actually, maybe this is a good time. If you'll just be patient with me, because I really apologize that I couldn't get the share screen to work before. But let's try again to look at the Friday night prayers that Rabbi Morgan wanted to look at. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes. So I assume that you know how to find the Siddur, the prayer book online. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Okay. I am guessing that the transliterations for the Shabbat prayers that we need are in here. So let's take a look. Cookie policy. All right, fine. Allow cookies. Lighting the Shabbat candles. Okay, can you see here? Lighting the Shabbat candles. Do you see the page?
Yes.
I'm sorry, the print is small, but did you see how I found it? On the Beth Yeshurun page, I went to this line that said, click here to view our Shabbat renewal transliterated booklet. All right, so that's what I clicked, get to this, all right? So we're going to look right here at the lighting of the Shabbat candles. This is the bracha. So first I light the candles and I circle them with my hands above 3 times. I'll demonstrate that later. And then I cover my eyes and recite this prayer. But of course, you're still learning the prayer, so don't worry about covering your eyes yet. And I'm going to sing the melody that Beth Yeshurun uses. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav vetzivanu lehadlik ner Vetsivanu, Vetsivanu, lehadlikner. Vetsivanu, Vetsivanu, lehadlikner. Shel Shabbat. And then the congregation sings Amen. So you'll notice that the words that are repeated, all you really need to do, according to Jewish law, is say the words. You don't have to sing them. And there are actually many different melodies. And I'm guessing some of you are familiar with other melodies for this prayer. But let me do this now. I'm going to sing a musical phrase at a time, and you can echo it back if you'd like to. Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav.
Asher
kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav. And then this word is repeated. B'mitzvotav. B'mitzvotav. Vetsivanu, Vetsivanu, lehadlikner. Vetsivanu, Vetsivanu, lehadlikner. Then we do it again. Vetsivanu, Vetsivanu, lehadlikner. And then we do it again. Vetsivanu, Vetsivanu, lehadlikner. Shel Shabbat.
Shel Shabbat.
So I'll record that and send it to you so that you can practice it. Okay, I'm looking. Here's the Friday night Kiddush. The blessing that we say over the wine on Friday night to bless the beginning of Shabbat. Okay, so I'll sing it once all the way through. I bet it'll be familiar to you. And we'll practice this one a little bit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Wait, let me do it once straight through and then we'll do it together, okay? So I'm going to start right here again. This is Baruch. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu ad kodsho v'ahava u'ratzon hinchilanu Aron lema'aseh v'reishit. Ihu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh. Zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ivanu v'acharta Viltanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Now, once again, this has a long, elaborate melody, but according to Jewish law, you don't have to chant it. You could just read it and it would be enough. For now, I think that maybe I'd like to suggest, and I'll send you the recording, that we would maybe practice up to the end of this word, Bereshit, for next week. So echo the phrases after me, okay? Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
Borei peri hagafen,
Borei pri hagafen.
Good. Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav,
Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav,
v'ratzavanu. Let me do it again. Beratza
Beratza
vanu
vanu,
Shabbat kodsho
Shabbat kodsho,
be'ahava
be'achava,
uvratzon
ubatzon,
inchilanu
ilhilanu,
zikaron lema'aseh
Zikaruna amatse,
Bereshit.
Bereshit.
Good. As far as I would recommend going on that one for this week. And I'll send you a recording of that with the cantor singing. And, you know, one of the best ways to learn the prayers is you can use that transliterated packet that I just showed you and watch the Friday night services at Beth Yeshurun and just follow in the packet. And in a month or two, you will be so comfortable following, unless maybe some of you are already doing that. And there's nothing for your Hebrew reading like actually knowing what the words sound like ahead of time, because then you'll look at the word and you'll say, oh yeah, that must be this word, because you already know it. Imagine trying to read English or Spanish, for example, if you didn't already know the spoken language, right? It would be much, much harder to read the words. So if you listen to services on Friday night, and it's streaming, by the way, so you could listen to it later in the week if you wanted to, and you follow along with that packet on a regular basis, your Hebrew will really improve. You'll see. And your Hebrew reading, even though you're using that transliteration packet, will really, really improve. Okay, so I'm going to send out, just in case you didn't see it, the videos that I've already made, because it's much easier to practice with those videos than the class that they're recording right now. That won't help you very much. And I'll also send out a copy of the cantor singing the Friday night Kiddush for you so that you can practice that. Does anybody have any questions?
I want to ask something. I want to know what level of Hebrew does it needs to be accomplished by the time of the in May when we're supposed to convert.
We just need to finish. We just need to finish this book. It's it's going to be very basic. You know, just need to be able to get through this book and you'll be fine. We're going to work on, you know, you'll need to know the brachot for the mikvah, right? There are brachot, blessings that we say for the mikvah. So you'll need to learn those. It'd be really, really nice and very special if we could learn the Shema in time. We'll do our best, but it's not a requirement. It's just icing on the cake. So, truthfully, for people who are self-motivated, this is the kind of book that you can get through autodidactically. That means by yourself. It's really a very, very simple and clear book. But I think we could probably finish this book way before the end of the year. We could probably finish it in February without much trouble, especially if people practice between lessons. And then we could work on prayers for the rest of the year, and that would be really nice. You'd enjoy that a lot more.
And how many lessons are we gonna get with Rabbi Morgan?
Just the same as with me. I'm not exactly sure of the exact amount, but I think it's about 20 classes, approximately.
Except the holidays, right? Like
right, except for
as,
Yom Tov, right? Right.
Okay.
So, does everybody have my contact information? Let me write it down. If you ever have trouble doing your homework or finding a recording or a video or something, I don't want you to be frustrated for a whole week.
Mm-hmm.
And contact me and I will make sure to send you whatever it is that you need or to go over it with you. If anybody reads ahead and they want to go over a reading with me, it would be my pleasure to go over it with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Cantordorf, when we are practicing the prayers, use the transliteration that you showed us through the Beth Yeshurun website?
Well, it's just convenient.
Right.
The truth is that the Siddur has transliterations for a lot of these prayers too. There's a transliteration of the Kiddush and a transliteration for the Friday night candle blessings, also in the Siddur itself. If you have a copy of the Siddur, or if you'd like to download the Friday night Siddur from the website, it has not all of the transliterations, but quite a few of them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The book that
My pleasure.
And the book that Rabbi Morgan recommended, I think, is going to provide us with those steps so that we can really learn the Shabbat prayers and the practice for those Friday night services also.
And so the bencher that he recommended to you?
Yes.
Yes, that is so great to have in the house. It's so useful.
We're ordering it right now because we really want to start implementing that. We did it once before, we made the challah bread, but we really struggled to understand at what moment we need to say what prayer. So just understanding and knowing what steps will be really helpful.
Oh, good. Yes, it's really helpful. And let me tell you that when I was first learning Hebrew and I wanted to do the brachot at home, it was useful to me too. So
which bencher is it?
Let me
we use
website. It's from the Haggadah store.
Yeah, if you look at the chat,
the red
HaggadassRus.com.
Is it the blue book or the red book?
Well, the truth is that it comes in here. I'll go get a copy and show you.
Here, I'll show you the link that I'm using.
I've got it on my phone. I just don't know which one. Is it the first one, the new red cover? It says.
This one that says on the inside, you can get any cover you want.
That's it. Okay, I see.
But it says Lechu Neranana.
Okay.
Lechu Neranana. Can you see it?
Yes, I see it. I see it.
Cantordorf, I'm sorry. I was looking at the website.
It's called Lechu Neranana. Lechu Neranana. Oh, in English it says "Let Us Sing."
Okay, I see it.
Look for "Let Us Sing."
So somebody wrote me that they had problems with their internet, and I just want to share. All of you know that I also had problems with the internet, which is why I had trouble at the beginning of class getting into the screen share.
Cantordorf, with the book, there are several versions. The full edition, is that the one you'd recommend that we purchase?
Well, I'm imagining that the full edition probably has for holidays as well as for Shabbat.
Ah, perfect.
I would recommend that.
Okay, thank you.
I would recommend that. I have found it so useful over the years. So it has.
Thank you.
really everything that you need at home for doing Shabbat and holidays at home. That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And this
So-
is a non sequitur, I suppose, but they also have a Hanukkah book. I'm
Well,
not.
I'm not familiar with it, but for Hanukkah, maybe it has like, I think this also has Hanukkah candle blessings in it. Let me see.
Okay. Because since we're ordering these, you may, would like to go ahead and get something that we'll need for the upcoming holidays.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if this might not have Hanukkah candle blessings. Let's see, candle lighting 45. You know, this does not have the Hanukkah candle blessings, so maybe that would be very useful to have, but I am really not sure what their new full edition has. So maybe it does have Hanukkah in it already. I would, when you go online, see if you can see a table of contents and see if they have Hanukkah in what they call their full edition.
I will do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you do get the complete edition, maybe you'd share with the class what's in it.
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
Bye. Bye. And unless you have another question, does anybody else have a question? Okay. Please be in touch if you need anything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Before Dorf, I'll just, since I'm at the end of class, if you don't mind, I have one more question for you. Just
Oh, sure.
in terms of preparing for Hanukkah, are there any other sort of resources that we can look at to be prepared as we start to implement, Shabbat?
Well, let me send you recordings of the brachot
Okay.
for Shabbat and Hanukkah, right? But for preparation, I can send you some nice articles about Hanukkah, but I think Rabbi Morgan might have mentioned that it's not considered a major holiday.
Right.
So you don't have a lot of major obligations, but rather there are sort of fun customs, fun things that you could do to celebrate in terms of games and songs and recipes.
That would be great.
It's more on that level and less on a Jewish law level.
Okay, that would be fantastic. We really want to start implementing some of these traditions. So we'd be happy to take any resources that would be helpful.
Okay, that's a deal.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Take care. Have a good week.
Thanks, you
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.